They called it the Tin Can. When the first images of the human warship Defiant reached the galactic networks, aliens across the stars erupted in laughter. It was angular, asymmetrical, looked patched together like a child's project in a junkyard. The Zarn Consortium, the galaxy's most feared and technologically superior empire, scoffed the loudest. Their flagship, the Wormfang, was a floating cathedral of death, sleek, powerful, revered. Next to it, the Defiant looked like a rusty coffin with a pulse. But what they didn't see, what they couldn't see, was what made us dangerous. I was there on the bridge of the Defiant, second in command to Captain Mira Lane. She was a woman who never blinked at threats, who had once stared down a Zarn war envoy and told him, "Come closer, so I don't miss." The galaxy thought humans were weak. We weren't tall like the Earth, or psychic like the Dreth, or born inside fusion stars like the Sunken. We were loud, emotional, unpredictable, and to them, laughable. Until we weren't. The day the Wormfang appeared in the Belka system, Mira stood on the command deck in her worn-out boots and beat-up flight jacket, hands behind her back, eyes locked on the glowing screen. "They brought the monster," she said, calm as a monk. "Let's show them why monsters fear humans." I remember the silence on the bridge when her words landed. No orders, no shouting, just that heavy feeling in the chest, like we all knew we were about to rewrite a page in history or get erased trying. We launched from orbit, dragging the Defiant out of the gravity well with a thruster configuration the Zarn believed was obsolete. Their scans probably picked us up and chuckled. We could almost hear it. They're mocking across the vacuum of space. But our ship wasn't made to impress. It was made to survive. Our hull was plated with scorched neutronium scavenged from ancient battlefield wreckage, chaotic to look at, impossible to predict. Our main weapon, a rail cannon they said couldn't work at that scale. We made it work, barely, and Mira had it aimed straight at the Wormfang's neck like a knife to the throat. As we approached, the Zarn hailed us. Their commander appeared on our feed, shimmering with arrogance in his crystalline battle skin. "Humans," he hissed, "you've brought a toy to a god's battlefield." Mira didn't answer. She just turned to me and said, "Fire." And in that moment, everything changed. The cannon fired. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't graceful. It didn't shimmer with energy or ripple with subspace distortions like Zarn weapons. It screamed. A mechanical, violent howl that shook the Defiant to its bones. The magnetic coils vibrated so hard I thought the whole ship would come apart. Sparks flew, consoles hissed, lights dimmed, but the slug, oh God, the slug, left the barrel at 20% the speed of light. It was a solid rod of tungsten, wrapped in a lattice of reactive alloys, programmed to detonate only after piercing a target. No plasma, no lasers, just raw, ancient kinetic rage. The Wormfang never saw it coming. Their shields were calibrated for energy weapons, plasma bolts, particle beams, the elegant tools of the advanced races. But a hunk of metal moving that fast, it sliced through their defenses like a spear through silk, straight through the command deck. A heartbeat later, the explosion bloomed inside their hull like a flower of vengeance. We watched, stunned. The Zarn flagship, the unkillable fortress, the pride of their fleet, jerked violently. Half of its frontal spine buckled. Then the midsection ruptured like a cracked egg. Fires spilled into space. Metal twisted. Pieces of the Wormfang floated away in slow, stunned agony. Silence on our bridge. Then Mira said, low and sharp, again. We didn't wait for their response. We didn't wait for the rest of the Zarn fleet to react. Because the Defiant wasn't just carrying weapons, she was carrying rage. Centuries of it. Generations of humans who'd been belittled, enslaved, ignored. And Mira, she was our voice. The second shot fired. This one went for the engines. By the time it landed, The Wormfang was already dying. The shot just made sure it never crawled away. The Zarn Armada finally moved, panic pulsing through their formation. But they hesitated. They hesitated. Because their godship had just been ripped apart by a scrap-built human vessel they'd dismissed as a joke. Fear, the one thing the Zarn never admitted to, now drifted through their ranks like radiation. "Status?" Mira asked. "Minor reactor instability," I replied, wiping sweat from my forehead. "Barrel coils are fried, but we've got one more shot. Maybe. Then we make it count." On every channel, Zarn commands echoed. Withdraw, reorganize, destroy the humans. But it was too late. We had cracked their spine, their pride, their illusion of invincibility. I looked around our bridge, at the crew held together with duct tape and desperation, at the ship no one believed in, and I realized something. The galaxy had made a mistake. They thought humans were weak because we weren't perfect. But we were never meant to be perfect. We were meant to survive. And when pushed far enough, we break gods. We didn't celebrate. Not right away. The Wormfang was burning behind us, a slow death dragging through space like a dying whale. But we knew better than to believe the fight was over. The Zarn didn't rise to galactic dominance by giving up after the first punch. And now we had humiliated them. That made us dangerous. That made us a target. Our systems were barely hanging together. Engineering was reporting overheating in the main coolant lines, and the cannon coils were glowing red even through the shielding. We had one more shot, like Mira said, but even that was a gamble. If we fired it, it might blow us up along with whoever we hit. "Get me a visual on their fleet," Mira ordered, calm as ever. The holoscreen lit up. Hundreds of Zarn vessels, frigates, interceptors, cruisers, all of them closing in. No hesitation now. Their rage overruled their fear. They were coming to erase us. We were alone. No reinforcements. No allies. Just the Defiant and a captain with death in her eyes. "They're gonna swarm us," I muttered. "We won't last 2 minutes in direct fire." "That's not the plan," Mira replied. "They still think like machines, like empires. Order and rank. They'll protect their command ship." "Didn't we just blow that in half?" She looked at me, a shadow of a grin on her face. "They've got a backup. They always do." And she was right. Behind the chaos, tucked in the shadows of the battlefield, we spotted it. A smaller but heavily armed dreadnought, crawling out of stealth. The Vorn Exile. A command vessel meant to take over if the Wormfang ever fell. We barely spotted it before it slipped behind a debris field, coordinating the Zarn response in silence. "They think we won't notice," Mira said. "They think we'll panic." She turned to the weapons officer. "You see that ship?" "Yes, ma'am." "Load everything we have left into that final round." "Ma'am, if we fire that, we die anyway if we don't." Silence again. Then movement. The crew went to work like a single mind. No questions. No fear. Just a strange kind of peace, like everyone had already accepted what this meant. We had one last chance to show them who we were. The railgun prepared for its third and final breath. The targeting was slow. Manual, half the systems offline. I helped calibrate it myself, sweat dripping into my eyes, my hands shaking as I adjusted the arc by millimeters. Every one mattered. The barrel shook, groaned, hissed steam. "Target locked," someone whispered. The Vorn Exile still hadn't moved. They thought the Defiant was done. Mira stood tall. Fire. And just like that, history shifted again. The cannon screamed, louder than before. The lights flickered. Half the ship dimmed. I thought our bones might shatter from the vibration. But that slug, God bless it, it flew. Right through the debris field, right into the Vorn Exile's heart. The explosion didn't just rip the command ship apart, it stunned the entire Zarn fleet. Without orders, without their overlords barking commands, they hesitated. floated, lost. And we were drifting too. No power, life support failing, one engine flickering. We had given it everything. Then Mira leaned back in her chair, eyes closed, and whispered, "Now we wait." Waiting was the hardest part. We drifted in silence, surrounded by wreckage and the hollow remains of our last shot. The Defiant floated like a ghost through the graveyard of metal and pride. No lights, no motion, just the occasional flicker of warning signals from overloaded consoles. Somewhere, deep in the ship, coolant hissed from a ruptured pipe. The air was getting thinner, colder, and still Mira didn't move. She sat on the bridge like she was carved from stone, her eyes closed, her breathing steady. She wasn't just waiting for power to come back, she was waiting for the Zarn. We all were. The Zarn fleet was still out there, alive but fractured. They didn't attack immediately. Maybe they were still trying to understand what just happened. Maybe they were scanning for a trap. Or maybe, for the first time in their empire's long history, they were afraid. I kept thinking they'd charge at us anyway, finish what they started. But minutes passed. Then more. Still no move. "They're retreating," our sensor officer whispered finally, barely believing it. I didn't trust it. "They're regrouping. They'll be back with a new fleet, new flagships, new monsters." "No," Mira said, eyes opening at last. "Not today." She pointed at the holoscreen. We zoomed in. The Zarn ships weren't turning back to attack. They were splitting off, scattering, like a broken school of fish with no predator to guide them. And then, something even stranger happened. Other ships appeared. Not Zarn, not human. Smaller craft. Freighters, fighters, vessels bearing the banners of worlds long forgotten. Species the Zarn had subjugated, enslaved, or silenced over generations. They'd been hiding, waiting, watching. And now, seeing the Wurmfang split in half, and the Vorn exile destroyed by a so-called primitive species, they began to rise. One by one, rebel transmissions lit up the galactic feed. The humans cracked their gods. We rise now. Resistance begins. This is the first flame. They can be hurt. They can be killed. And just like that, the myth of Zarn invincibility shattered. Mira didn't smile, but I saw it in her eyes. That glimmer of something deep, unspoken. Not victory. Not yet. But hope. The dangerous kind. The kind that spreads faster than fire. "We've started something," I said. "We didn't start it," she replied, looking out at the stars. "We just lit the match." The ship groaned beneath us. Engineering reported minimal power rerouted to life support. Oxygen began to stabilize. Gravity returned, barely. We weren't dead yet, but we were far from safe. Our comms crackled to life, weak but functional. A voice came through, scratchy, almost inaudible. "This is the Vigilant, human vessel Defiant. We received your signal. We're on approach." I blinked. The Vigilant was a Terran Alliance rescue cruiser. That meant Earth knew. That meant someone had been watching. "Are we being rescued?" someone asked. Mira stood. For the first time since the battle began, she looked tired. Not broken, just mortal, human. "No," she said softly. "We're being remembered." They didn't cheer when the Vigilant docked. There was no applause, no wild hugs or grand celebrations. Just a deep, exhausted silence as the first boarding crew stepped into the Defiant and found us half alive, bruised, bloodied, and held together with sheer human stubbornness. One of the medics looked at Mira and almost dropped his equipment. "You were supposed to be dead," he said, stunned. "We still might be," she replied with a dry smile, limping past him. The Vigilance crew moved fast, setting up emergency medbays on both ships, pumping breathable air back into the Defiant, and stabilizing what little power we had left. Our engineers worked alongside theirs, patching, rerouting, rewiring like maniacs. They couldn't believe what we'd done. One of their officers pulled me aside. "You cracked the Wormfang. That thing was a myth to us. We didn't even think it could exist, let alone be destroyed." I shrugged, my voice hoarse. "We aimed. We fired. It broke." He laughed, more in disbelief than joy. "God-damn humans." But news travels fast in space. Within hours, more signals flooded in, from outposts, colonies, fringe planets. Footage of the Wormfang's destruction spread like wildfire across galactic channels. You could hear the scream of our cannon, see the eruption splitting the Zarn's pride in half. Over and over, it played. Analysis, commentary, fear, praise, fury. And then came the responses. Some were hopeful, species calling for alliance, rebellion, solidarity. Others were not. Death threats, calls for retaliation, promises of extermination. But what struck me most wasn't what people said. It was what they felt. The galaxy, for the first time in living memory, felt uncertain. The Zarn weren't gods anymore. And humans? We weren't insects. We were something new, something unpredictable, something dangerous. Later that day, the Alliance command patched through. A general appeared on the screen, rigid and dressed in perfect formality. "Captain Mira Lane," he said. "You're hereby recalled to Earth for debriefing and commendation. The Terran Alliance is grateful." Mira didn't salute. "Send someone else," she said. "We're not done." "Captain, we cracked their flagship. Their fleet is splintered. But the Empire isn't gone. You want to hand out medals? Fine. But I'm staying out here." The general frowned. "We need heroes at home." She stepped forward, her voice firm. "Then find someone prettier." The line cut. I swear, for a second, even the crew of the Vigilant looked like they'd follow her into hell. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the Defiance observation deck, staring at the torn remains of the Wormfang. Just floating there. Silent, empty. Dead. The ultimate symbol of tyranny reduced to space debris. And I realized something. This wasn't the end. It wasn't even the climax. This was the spark. And whatever came next, the galaxy wasn't ready for it. 2 days passed. By then, the wreckage field had become sacred ground. Not officially, not marked, but the way ships passed slowly by, respectfully, keeping their distance from the shattered husk of the Wormfang, you'd think it was a monument. It had become a symbol of failure, of defiance, of change. The Defiant limped forward under tow from the Vigilant, but even as we crept toward the nearest Allied repair station, the atmosphere aboard didn't soften. Mira held daily strategy meetings, not briefings. She refused to discuss rest, or return, or awards. She was planning war, and she wasn't alone. Dozens of ships from colonies we'd never heard of and species we'd never worked with began signaling us. Their captains asked for tactical data, weapons schematics, and, strangely, our railgun designs. Apparently, we'd inspired a new kind of arms race, but not in the traditional way. These weren't power-hungry tyrants. These were survivors, people who had hidden in shadows, praying for someone to strike first. We had become the proof that defiance worked. Mira made a decision. She gathered the core bridge crew in the common room, a narrow, cramped space with flickering lights and a coffee machine that spat sparks when used. We sat around in silence as she dropped a hand-drawn star map onto the table. "The Zarn will retaliate," she said. "Maybe not this cycle, maybe not next, but it will come. And when it does, they won't make the mistake of underestimating us again." I leaned forward. "So what's the plan? Hit them before they rebuild?" She shook her head. "That's what they'd expect. No. We do what they can't imagine." We waited. She pointed to 3 systems deep in former Zarn space, uncharted, small, out of the way. "These are prison colonies, Slaves, political prisoners, survivors, forgotten by the galaxy. That's where we go next. To liberate them, one of the crew asked. Mira nodded. To arm them. Silence. It was bold, reckless, the kind of move that would make the Terran Alliance leadership sweat blood. But everyone in that room knew one truth. The Wormfang was the beginning. The Defiant wasn't just a ship anymore. It was a message. And Mira Lane? She was becoming something more than human. She was becoming myth. We'll hit one system at a time, she continued. Free them. Leave them with the tools to fight. We don't stay. We don't babysit. We ignite. I grinned despite the fear in my gut. Sounds like a suicide mission. She smiled faintly. We've already died once. We all looked around. Nobody spoke up. Nobody objected. And so, just like that, the next phase of our war began. Not with a fleet. Not with banners or parades. With a broken ship, a ghost crew, and a dream that somewhere, out there, freedom was still worth fighting for. The first target was a mining moon called IREX 4. No official designation on star charts. Just a rock barely big enough to hold an atmosphere, orbiting a dead gas giant in a system nobody cared about. To the Zarn, it was a dumping ground, a place where dissenters were worked to death harvesting thorite ore. No weapons, no defenses, just electric fences, drones, and misery. We arrived cloaked behind a dead comet, sensors cold, lights off. Mira had ordered the Defiant stripped down. No insignias, no identifiers. We didn't come to be recognized. We came to leave a fire. The plan was simple. Drop in fast. Hit the control compound. Disable drone coordination. Free the workers. Leave them the railguns and reactors we'd salvaged from wreckage. And vanish. The execution. Not so simple. I remember standing in the drop pod, heart hammering, rifle in my hands, armor still scratched from the last battle. Mira stood beside me, her voice calm over the comms. Remember, they expect nothing from these people. No weapons, no resistance. They expect silence. Let's be loud. The pod hit the surface hard. Dust and fire exploded around us. We came out shooting, precision strikes, no hesitation. Zarn security drones scrambled to respond, but they weren't built for war. They were built to manage. And we didn't come to be managed. Within 12 minutes, the entire control station was under our command. We unlocked the gates. What came out broke me. Men and women, skin like paper, eyes dull, backs bent from years in gravity too high for human tolerance. They didn't rush us. They didn't celebrate. They just watched, unsure if we were real or another trick. One of them stepped forward, a woman with half her face burned, her other eye sharp and alive. "Who are you?" she asked. Mira didn't give a speech. No slogans, no promises. She simply handed the woman a detonator. "You are now." That changed everything. We left them weapons, power cells. One of our techs stayed behind, against orders, to train them. Said he'd rather die helping someone stand than go back to command and file reports. Mira didn't stop him. We lifted off at dusk, dust trailing in our wake, silence in the drop bay. No medals, no crowds, just a world that had changed, and a crew too tired to speak. Back on the bridge, I leaned on a console, still sweating. That felt good. Mira didn't look at me. "It's not about feeling good," she said. "It's about making sure the next time they think of putting chains on humans, or anyone, they remember what happened to the Wormfang." I nodded, because she was right. This wasn't a rescue mission. It was vengeance, wrapped in steel, flying under no flag, burning every lie the Zarn had ever told the stars. The eighth and final part of our story began not with a battle, but a broadcast. We didn't send it to the Alliance. We didn't send it to governments or fleets or high-ranking officers. We sent it to everyone. Every open channel, every smuggler's frequency, every backdoor civilian comm line. It played across starports and slums, pirate dens and border stations. It showed the Defiant, battered and glowing like a scarred wolf. Then it cut to the wreck of the Wormfang, broken and drifting in silence. And finally, to Mira, no title, no rank, just her voice. "This is Mira Lane, captain of the human vessel Defiant. We've destroyed the flagship of the Zarn Empire. We've torn their second command ship from the sky. We've armed the forgotten, freed the buried. And we're not done." She looked into the camera like she could see every pair of eyes watching. "You were told they were gods, that they couldn't bleed, couldn't break, that resistance was death. You were told to obey." Her eyes narrowed. They lied. The screen flickered to footage of IREX 4, the prisoners arming themselves, flying the jagged human skull painted on the scrap metal flag we'd left behind. "We don't want your loyalty. We don't want your gold. We want your rage, your memories, your scars. We want you to fight, not just for us, for you." She stepped back. "Join us or don't, but know this. The next time the Zarn knock, they'll find a universe full of ghosts they tried to bury." The feed cut, and then the stars caught fire. Not literal flames, but uprisings, cell after cell, former slaves detonating control towers, rogue colonies attacking Zarn patrols, smugglers offering fuel and guns, even AI units, abandoned by the Zarn after failed subjugation, broadcasting support in binary rebellion. We hadn't just started a war, we'd started a revolution. Mira never acknowledged her legend. She never sat on a throne or barked orders like a queen. She just kept leading missions, one by one, spreading the spark. The Defiant became a ghost ship of justice, appearing, striking, vanishing. And us? Her crew. We became names whispered in hangars and resistance tunnels like prayers. One night, long after we'd dropped off our 7th shipment of weapons to an uprising on Darren 9, Mira and I stood in the observation bay again. The stars looked different now. Alive. "I used to think we were the underdogs," I said. She didn't answer right away. Then, "We still are." I laughed. "Even after everything?" She turned toward me, and for the first time, I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen since the day we cracked the Wormfang. Fear. "Because now," she said softly, "they know what we're capable of." And that was the truth. The galaxy would never laugh at us again. They'd fear us, they'd chase us, and they'd remember us, because we were the humans who cracked a god in half and kept going.